Why did the narcissist target me and ruin my life? Hi beautiful beings, I'm Carol Wraithall. I'm here to help people on their awakening journey. But what I notice happens a lot is that the people who are awakening have a raft of experiences in their life. Often they are really beautiful people. You're a beautiful person. But they've had abuse in their past, and there's a whole spiritual story around that. So I'm going to answer the question about narcissists. Why do they come into our life? Why do they target us? How do they find us? So to explain this, I'm going to tell the story about a soul. The soul wanted to come here to earth to have an experience. But the soul wanted to experience what it would feel like to have forgiveness. So the soul got together with another soul and said, look, can you please be my parent so I can experience narcissistic abuse or other types of abuse in my childhood? They made the agreement. The other soul loved this soul so much, said, yes, I can do that for you so you can experience what you need to. And the soul made that agreement with other souls, and they stacked up in that lifetime who was going to do what and when. So the soul came in, and maybe the soul had a mother who couldn't love them because they themselves could not love. Let's say this mother was a narcissist herself. So the soul grew up learning that it had to keep itself safe, and the only way to keep itself safe was to please the mother and do everything the mother said. And the mother was really hard and would shame the child, and in time the child got to figure out that maybe there's something wrong with me, because they don't remember what they chose to agree before the child came. And so the child lost its self-esteem. It became shy. It decided nobody's going to love me, nobody's going to like me, and became a loner. And then she grew up, and because she can't love herself because she feels she's not good enough, she looks for love from outside of herself. She needs somebody to love her. She craves somebody to love her because she desperately needs that love, but she can't get it from herself. Now, narcissists don't love themselves either. They also have an original wound in their childhood, but they learnt to manipulate the world to get their needs met. Now, what these narcissists can do is they recognise very quickly a person, a soul, well, a person who doesn't love themselves. They can spot them a mile away. They know, they've learnt to be manipulative, so they know if they come across to this person as really admiring them, that they're going to win their heart very quickly. So that's what they do. They figure out who you are, they target you, and they come across and they're so charming and they admire you, and you've got beautiful hair. I really like what you're wearing. Oh, you're so funny. Oh, you feel like my soulmate. And because the girl is craving love, she just loves this attention. She doesn't realise how false it is. And then bit by bit, he wins her heart over. And then once he's got her, like maybe he marries her, once he's got her, then he doesn't have to win her anymore. And you know, I don't know if you know that narcissists really need attention. We call it narcissistic supply. They really need this to feel that they've got any place in the world, and they don't care whether the attention is positive or negative. So once they win the heart over of the girl, the love that she gives them is not enough. It's become boring. They need something different to generate that same sort of energy that we call narcissistic supply. So they use their manipulation skills and they press the buttons of the girl. And they press those same wounds that the girl grew up with, because they know how to find those wounds. And so he'll start saying, "You're lucky you've got me. Nobody else would love you. You're so flawed. You can't do this properly, you can't do that properly." They don't do it in such an obvious way as I'm saying it. And there's a lot of other different things. They withdraw their love and affection. They do what's called ghosting, which means they don't respond to you for a while, which means that you try harder and harder to get their attention. They make up things that you've done wrong, and so you try hard to clear yourself with them and prove to them that you didn't do this thing. They also do what's called gaslighting, which is where they might say, "I think you should see a therapist. You know, I think you're quite sick. There's something wrong with you that you would think I would make something up. You know, that's just not right. I think you should see a therapist." And they'll play on that. They might even hide your car keys to convince you. When you ask them, "Where's the keys?" they convince you that you're losing your memory. There's a whole lot more, but the question is, why did they target me? They targeted you because you have this unhealed wound. Now, there is a very easy way for you to heal that wound. Yes, it involves allowing the pain of your past to come up, be felt, and be released. You could try journaling, writing things down, writing how you feel. Allow yourself to feel those emotions. Too often it's very easy to suppress those feelings, to use addictions, to hide from feelings. I did that. When I chose to heal was the same day that I chose to live. I had been raised by a narcissist. I had been in relationships with narcissists. I felt like I had lost my mind over and over, and then got depressed, healed myself, only to get into another relationship with a narcissist. My last relationship was the most traumatic. I cannot go into details because I must protect the identity of the people. But I became so overwhelmed that I did something that I would never ever do. I had an overdose. I didn't mean to kill myself, but it was stupid what I did. I was desperate. I couldn't handle my feelings. And I knew that to leave this situation, I had to let go of so much that mattered to me. So that night, while I was in hospital, I think I've told this story before, in my awakening journey, I heard them reading out my blood pressure, and it was really low. It was dangerously low. And in that moment, I had a choice to make. I could die, or I could live. And living meant healing. It meant going away from that place, letting go, just letting go of everything, and living for myself. I chose in that moment to actively love myself. So I did. I left, and I came to a place where I only had myself to look after. I cried for 6 months. Every morning I woke up in pain and cried. I put myself through the paces of living and doing my job. I went along to an organisation where they supported people going through a hard time. Driving home from that place, I would just cry. But I pushed myself and loved myself through it. Being an occupational therapist, I used the power of activity, which means that I got really creative. The power of activity, the power of being creative, puts you in alignment with your soul. You're in a meditative state. Your brain goes quiet, and the center of creativity is the place that's active. And it's very healing. All that flow of the beautiful love energy coming through you and through me was so healing. It transformed the pain. The crying and sitting with my emotions allowed me to release the pain. And then one day came and I woke up and I didn't cry. I felt happy. I felt an excitement for life. I felt like I'd been born again. And I had literally recreated myself. I've spoken in the Awakening video, which I'll link below, that I felt like I was a completely different person. And there is a reason for that. When we reach a certain stage of healing, what we do is we literally rewrite our DNA. So if you had a graph, let's go, there's the graph of you, there's the parameters, and this is the wounded person. When you're healing, you travel along that same line, and then you reach the stage of healing, and suddenly you rise above it, and there's this space between the old you and the new you, and you take off with your new life, because you are new. It is like it never happened. It's so worth the healing journey. It's so worth the months that it's going to take to heal. But what choice do you have? Are you going to live with your pain? Are you going to live with addictions that you use to keep that pain covered? Are you going to stay vulnerable to attracting more narcissists into your life? Because the answer, my friend, is that we do it. We attract them. And it's not our fault. It's just that we have those wounds and that need for love. And the biggest thing that healing brings is self-love. When I started healing, I had heard about self-love, that you need to love yourself, but it's like, what is it? I googled it, I couldn't find an answer. What is self-love? What do you do? Well, what you do is you actively love yourself. It's not about feeling in love with yourself, although that does happen after a while, and not in a weird way. It is the greatest love affair you'll ever have of your life, but it's one that lasts forever. And when we actively love ourselves, what I did was I pictured the wounded part of me as the wounded inner child. Now for me that was just really appropriate, because it was the child part of me that was the original wound. When you're wounded as a child, a part of you stops growing. You actually do lose a fragment of yourself, like a fragment of your soul. The innocence is gone to start with, no matter what else. Trust, safety in the world. So a part of that was left behind, and I needed to reclaim my safety in the world. So how I went about it was, I allowed that wounded part of myself to become the inner child. And a lot of people use this technique for healing. In occupational therapy, we don't use it so much. It's more the psychologists and that team that use it. But I knew about it, so I decided I'm loving my inner child. So I spoke to my inner child. I loved it with my words and thoughts. One thing I had that often people have when they've been abused is what we call the inner critic, or the inner dialogue that is horrible. It's called the default mode network. And that is the voice that says, you're not good enough. You'll never achieve. You're not good enough to find a real person that can love you. As soon as they find out what you like, they won't love you anymore. I had that growing up. The voice was, you're not going to get any friends, not once they know who you really are. And I really felt that I was this shameful person that nobody would like. So I grew up with that inner that default mode network that constantly put me down. And it was the voice of my abuser in the past as a child. It was the voice of the ex-boyfriend or whoever it was that abused me. That voice would keep on abusing me even when they're not there. I didn't realise that I was going to do this, but when I chose to speak to my inner child with love, I chose to make that a commentary for every moment that I was awake. So when I made a coffee, I would say, "Well done, Carol, you made a beautiful coffee." I would say, "Hey," even if I did something wrong, it would be, "Hey, you did that wrong really well." And I would have a laugh with myself. But after even just a week, I think it was, of doing that loving speak to myself, I just suddenly realised that that critical part of the voice had gone. I even went quiet and stopped talking to myself to find out what would happen. And no, the voice didn't come in. It had gone. Now, that voice is what we call the ego, and I'm not going too far into it. A lot of people associate the ego as something negative. It's not. It's a part of who we are. It's the voice of our body, the voice that carries our wounds, the voice that wants to protect herself. And it thought it was protecting me by saying you're not good enough, because it felt safe being separate and alone. Egos don't like change. They like same. And that's partly why they allow you to fall in love with the same type of person, the same narcissist or the same abuser, because it's what they're familiar with. They're comfortable with that type of love. So my friend, we do that until we heal. This is a good time for me to mention, I've got a group that I'll put the link in below. It's for women. Sorry guys, but this one's for the girls. It's a supportive group, and the page where the group is has been infused with love and comfort by the women that visit there. I've got a mix of women who've healed and a mix of women coming in with their wounds. There are group rules. We protect each other, and you can check them out when you ask to join. The link is down below. I invite you to come and be a part of the group. You will find love there. You will find acceptance. And with that support of all these women, you can heal yourself. But there is one thing that I will share with you that works for thousands of people who've healed, is that once you're healed, you're not vulnerable anymore. You either don't see narcissists in your life, or if they are there, you're not afraid of, they don't control you anymore. You're not afraid anymore. The one that's in my life I see regularly is it's just like, okay, yeah, I can see what you're doing, but it's not going to work on me. Or you might meet them, but because you don't put out that vibe, they're not interested in you. They're only interested in those people that are desperate for love and that have wounds that they can use to manipulate. If you liked this video, I'm going to create a series just on narcissistic abuse. It's a huge topic, but I'm also going to put in the key points that I like to share about healing and how you can be free of narcissists forever, or at least free from their control, which is what they're all about anyway. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I will bring you more. Now I'll be looking forward to seeing you, and I'll be waiting for you in the next video. Bye for now.